South Africa ranks 10th on the list of countries with the highest number of suicide deaths. This is according to a report by the South Africa Society of Psychiatrists. It's estimated that out of 13,774 reported suicides, about 10,861 of these are men. The Generation Gender South Africa says this necessitates a better approach to mental health, especially among men. For more on this, we are now joined in studio by Activate Change Drivers Communications Manager Zamayirha Peter and Projects Manager Ramolodzi Sutwani joins us via Zoom. Good evening to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Kahleko. Thank you so much for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. Ramolodzi, perhaps I'll start with you as a gentleman in this conversation. Just talk to us about the program Generation G and Moments with Men. What does it aim to do, and really what are the stress factors that affect men, especially when it comes to their mental health issues?
All right. Thank you so much for having us. So the Generation G program is a global partnership of 7 countries which strives towards the promotion of gender justice and the prevention of gender-based violence. So in South Africa, we are working across 3 provinces, Gauteng, KZN, and the Eastern Cape. We work with Sonke Gender Justice and Action Aid. So the idea is for us to modelize communities in order for communities to join us in the fight against gender-based violence. That is at the core of what we are doing as the Generation G program.
And I can imagine that, of course, the mental issues that are affected by men are mostly seen in the outcomes of gender-based violence. What do you as an organization, what have you found as an organization to be some of the stigmas around men having to come out about some of their mental health issues?
So we've gone around the country, especially the 3 provinces, engaging communities around issues of gender-based violence. And what is coming out of these conversations, out of these dialogues, rather, is men saying that they are facing depression, are facing anxiety, and there seems not to be programs that are there to empower men to be able to deal with these issues. These are some of the things that then lead to issues of gender-based violence as we experience them in the country. So as a program, we thought it would be important for us to think about how we can respond to this challenge. How do we begin to engage men more meaningfully in order for them to seek help if they're facing mental health issues? And we really want to have men starting to speak about these issues so as to address stigma that is around the issue of mental health.
And I'll bring you in now, Zamayirha, with regards to those programs that have been formed that Ramolodzi is speaking about for men to be able to come out and speak about those issues. Speak to us about Men at Work. What's its structure? Who's involved? What are the tools that you're putting together to have men have an open and free space to be able to speak about their mental health issues?
Thank you so much, Kahleko. I think it's important to first highlight how we arrived here. So we looked at the World Health Organization's 2021 report, and it highlighted that of the 13,000 suicides reported in South Africa, more than 10,000 of those were of men. And as Generation G, we felt that it was important that we proactively respond to this through interactive programs and engagements. And one of these programs is an Imbizo that we host annually in November. This year it's taking place on the 11th of November at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and we've themed it Men at Work. And why we decided on this theme is because we are saying that there are men in South Africa who are doing the work when it comes to mental health. Right. They have been proactive. They, go on to the various helplines online, like the South African Depression and Anxiety groups. So many men are involved in that. Some go to counseling. counseling. Some use outlets like the places of worship as avenues to deal with mental health. But there are also men who are in communities where they don't really feel that they are empowered enough in their environments and in their communities to address mental health. So what we are doing as a program is we've created an environment that we believe is safe. It's safe because we are seeing men in your full diversity, unemployed men, employed men, leaders in the political sphere, global icons, comedians, actors, come on board and join our campaign. And we are saying not only are men at work doing the mental health interventions, but we also want to encourage them and to demonstrate to them how can they do work. So we are hosting this year different dialogues that will be happening at the Men at Work campaign. We are also going to be having intimate corner sessions. These will not be documented. Here, men will have a very safe environment to talk about what are their issues. We will have little social cards where they can discuss what, any questions that they have, whether they feel publicly comfortable to or privately to do so. We will also have a fitness corner. We're having Sivngesi come and take the guys over a very, very minor training. Here he will, use fitness to highlight the fact that this is another avenue that one can use to deal with mental health. One of our program directors is David Gao. He's a comedian, and he will be with us throughout the program. And we're trying to say we can discuss mental health in different ways. We can have conversations. We can physically get on the ground and do some physical work, but we can also just create an environment where men in their full diversity can understand that it's not just the sportsman or the unemployed guy who deals with depression and anxiety, but it's also the young man who perhaps does not have a job. It's also the young man who has great ambitions but feels very frustrated with, the economic environment and the depression that we are going through as a country. And so what we are saying is come onto our campaign, come onto our environment. It's safe for you. You don't need to pay anything. You just need to come ask questions, come contribute to the conversation. And essentially that's why we're having Men at Work.
When curating this event, how important was it in finding men that are relatable? Because I've seen that the Newzroom Afrika is also part of the program, a man who's really out there with his wife, and they speak very openly about their relationship, about the challenges that he's experienced as a man. How important was it to find people that people who would be attending can relate to?
It was incredibly important, Katlego, and this is because we look at the stats, we see, 10,000 men are, dealing with some kind of form of mental health crisis. But who are these men? These include persons like Dr. Newzroom Afrika, and he wrote a book called I Am a Man Now, and this book comes from a context where he only learned of his father at the age of 50, and he then details, the complexities of growing up as a young boy who did not know what it was like to grow up with a father and how that affected his identity as a man. And the choices that he made, the great choices that he made, and the not so great choices that he made, and how these informed his mental state. And so we were very intentional and purposeful with the men that we have on board. These are all men who talk about mental health in one way or another. Sivngesi is quite public about, his stance to do with GBV. He's very active on social platforms. David Gao uses his comedy as an outlet to, address and to, respond to mental health. So we really were not just looking for celebrities or, global icons, but we were looking for men who can openly and publicly discuss what it looks like and what it means to be a man in South Africa faced with, all these demands and, having to wrestle with mental health and anxiety as well as depression.
Ramolotsi, just to bring you back into the conversation here, how important is it for such conversations to be able to reach out to men, especially those in remote and rural areas?
I think that's quite crucial in our fight against, particularly in our fight against gender-based violence. For us to speak to all men from rural settings, from townships where where violence is rife. How do we begin to have conversations about the perpetrators of this violence in communities, and for men to begin to introspect and look at themselves and the role that they need to play in building communities. I think that is very important for us not to simply look at men as perpetrators. Yes, statistics speak to that, but what positive role can men begin to play in our communities in order for them to be protectors, in order for them to be allies in the fight against gender-based violence. So we are speaking to all men, as my colleague Zama has pointed out. We speak to men from rural areas, from townships, from different sectors of society, because this is not a woman's issue. It's all of us. It affects all of us, and we need to be part of the solution.
It certainly does affect all of us. I mean, my question to you would be, what tools would the men then leave with after the summit and them coming together? But most importantly, the support structures within their homes, the women that they live with. How do they then help further the healing process for those men?
So essentially, what we hope that the men take out of the campaign is information. So we want men, we'll have doctors present. So these doctors will be there to give us a clinical analysis in terms of what is depression, what does it look like clinically, how can you deal with it, how do you start the conversations at home, how do you, introduce your wife or your sister or your mother to the idea of you having to wrestle with anxiety and depression. So it's knowledge, it's entry point conversations, but they will also leave with interventions like, can you go for a jog, how can you exercise, how can you use some form of art. We'll have an art station where we'll have an art curator taking through the men in terms of how you can use painting and writing as an outlet to deal with your mental health. So we'll leave them with very practical, tools that they can use at home, tools that they can educate even, the people that they find in their own environment. We'll leave them with a voice and a confidence, and we'll also assure them of an environment. The Activate Network, is there for all young people in their full diversity. And we are saying, once you have come into our space, you're now part of our network, you're now part of, a global network that exists to empower you and to create a safe space for you.
And how young would you encourage men to be in order to join such conversations?
As early as possible. As early as possible, as soon as you have the language where you can express the fact that you are sad, you are happy, it's important that you be part of these conversations. But in terms of our target market, we're looking at young people close to voting age, as well as those, who are in their 30s and above, and these are the young people that we will be accommodating at the Imbizo.
All right. Ramoloto, beyond the Imbizo, where could people find Generation G if they want to have conversations, if they want to be a part of any of your activities?
Yeah, we are active on our Activate Change Drivers social media platforms. We're doing work also in communities in Inanda, in case of them, Inanda and Palume. We're doing work in Butterworth and Tata in the Eastern Cape, as well as Orange Farm and Tembisa and Gauteng. At the core of our work is to mobilize communities to really support initiatives that seek to end gender-based violence. So join the call and support us in our endeavors to address the issue of gender-based violence.
All right. Thank you to both of you for joining us this evening, and obviously for the work that you're doing. It's very important that we always include our men in conversations and we don't leave them behind in order for our society to be functional and to be fully impactful. So thank you so much for your work and all the best.
Thank you for having us.
And that was Zamayirha Peter, Communications Manager at Activate Change Drivers, as well as Ramoloto Sitwan, who's the Strategic Partnerships and Projects Manager, speaking to us there about the Men's Imbizo that will be taking place next month.